Hey, this is Steven. What's up? This is MOCHiPOP, and we are about to talk about, wait for it. Oh, but first, make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and the K-pop industry has been very interesting when it came to China back in 2020, 2021, 2022, because China apparently banned K-pop, and I did hear about that. It was big news at the time, at least for the people who it's relevant to. And we also have some rumors that Korea might be trying to get rid of K-pop for other reasons. At the moment, don't think it's going to happen because JYP's been killing it with competition shows, but you never know, right? So that's a whole nother subject matter that I might have to explore. But first, the question is, why did China ban K-pop? So I have that question too. So make sure you like, subscribe, share, hit that bell for notifications, and let's continue with the article here. It says, K-pop returns to China, a battle for relevance. All right, that's the title. From Taiwanese singer Jolin Tsuyai and the musicians Louis Sheng and Luan Yaowei, a multitude of Asia's biggest names in music and entertainment, covered at the 2023 Tencent Music Entertainment Awards show for the first time in years following China's post-pandemic reopening. The awards show, held in MOCHiPOP on July 8th and 9th this year, was a spectacle featuring Chinese celebrities and influencers. However, all attention turned to K-pop group Lee Seraphim when it took to the stage for its performance, which I guess that would make sense. The act was predictably upbeat, catchy, and vibrant, but the real surprise was that Lee Seraphim had been able to appear at the event in the first place. So yeah, that would be a surprise. Comparing Japanese members Sakura and Kazuha and South Korea members Kim Seon, Ha Young Chin, and Hong Yoon Chai, Lee Seraphim is among the few South Korea-founded pop outlets to have been able to perform for China's fans in recent years. So this is kind of one of the, I guess the performance. Pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it looks like they were able to perform, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm not sure if that's them or not, but yeah, must have been a big deal to see artists from Korea coming. I'm not sure if they're from, if they are from Korea, let me know, because I have the wrong groups. But yeah, kind of turn it down a little bit, but yeah, it looks like they have that privilege of performing there for whatever reason. So yeah, Seraphim performed Eve Psyche and Bluebeard Wife at the 2023 TMEA Tencent Music Entertainment Awards. So this is them performing, and they're killing it. Obviously, the energy must have been big because, like I said, the K-pop energy is just like no other. I could compare it to can't compare it because they have their own unique energy, right? So it makes sense that China would be able to get them in now because, for one, China still has an economy. So they can't just keep people out that long, right? It makes perfect sense to me. So yeah, I'm for it. So at first, honestly, at first I thought China was banning K-pop because they didn't like the influence of K-pop, but maybe it was a little bit less of that and more of just the fact that China just wanted to, I guess, keep foreigners out in general because of their excuse, at least from this so-called pandemic, according to China, because I don't trust anything China says as a government, but I can see why that they would want people out that are not Chinese. But I really think, honestly, like from what I read earlier, it was really more the influence of K-pop, which again, even Korea themselves are kind of backing out of the whole K-pop industry in a way. Maybe it's because K-pop has become very westernized in the sense that they've been coming to the West, and maybe the West has been influencing them a little bit too much, which could in turn influence Korea in a negative way. So it may not be K-pop in and of itself. It could be just influence from the West, which you see a lot of collaborations with the West. You saw the song 7 with the Jungkook with the artist, I can't think of the artist's name, black rapper. I did a reaction on that. So it could be things like that. Again, this has happened before. 7 from a long time ago, 2008 or 2007 or 8, collaborated with Lil Kim. He was a Korean artist. 7, you guys didn't know about that. So it was already happening for years, but it just was bad timing. So who knows what the reason is, but I can see why Korea would be concerned. And I think China was concerned for the same reason, even though I would say they're hypocrites in the sense where China already had their own artists. So are they going to get rid of their artists too? Like, so it doesn't make any sense to me. So if it was about the pandemic, fine, but I just don't believe them. So simmering geological tension between China and South Korea since 2017 have long made it challenging for K-pop groups to tour the mainland. Beijing has effectively but unofficially banned South Korea cultural content, including K-dramas, K-pop, and K-beauty products due to its opposition to the installation of Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD, missiles on the American military base in South Korea. Yeah, this is all political. I told you. See, had nothing to do with the pandemic, had nothing to do with that. I think it was just around that time that it happened, and it was really more political tension between Korea and China, which makes perfect sense because really, China is just everybody's enemy right now as a country, if I'm being completely honest. This is why I think Korea and Japan should really start getting along, because as a government, the Chinese are, to me, their main enemy. And I want to support Chinese pop. I want to support the Chinese artists, but I just can't support the way the government has been acting and treating their people. So that's really more of on the propaganda China side, where Korea is bad, Japan is bad, but not China, right? And not Chinese artists. I mean, what's the difference between K-pop and Chinese pop, really? I guess maybe the cultural differences is what China cares about. And they don't want, as long as Korea is the enemy, politically speaking, China doesn't want the influence from Korea. It's the same reason why Korea didn't want Japanese stuff, because of the situation with the who owns what island and what seas. It was the same situation with China. And Japan seemed insensitive, and people started throwing away their PlayStation games and anime. I'm not sure about anime. Nobody threw away anime, guys. Nobody. Nobody threw away their anime. But you get my point. That was the thing that was happening. It was just getting out of control. I'm like, China, fine, but Japan and Korea really, really, really need to get along, guys. I don't care what the past was like. If you guys don't come together and be stronger together, if you're going against a country like China, then I don't see what the point is. So let's put the pride out of it. Forgive Japan. Japan can forgive Korea for that, whatever they did, and let's just move on. And that's kind of my take on it. And I'm sure all the young people understand that a little bit. Maybe some of the older generation may not quite want that, but I mean, you can't let the young people suffer because of past mistakes, and that's how I see things. And so yes, Consequently, K-pop groups have been denied entry to perform and attend events such as fan meet and greets in China. Some artists have voiced their frustrations. "I can't perform in China," said BTS Suga during a live broadcast in June. "I've seen instances where Chinese members are allowed to work in China, but the K-pop group itself is not allowed." Yeah, it probably happened with people from like there are some Chinese members in K-pop groups. At least specifically, I know Super Junior. Super Junior has a Chinese member. I'm sure of it. Maybe more than one. I'm not sure. So makes Super Junior stronger. Groups like them who have Chinese members, because they can at least get money for their agency and perform as individuals representing the group. Or if you have like 3 or 4 Chinese members, or let's say Japanese members performing in Japan, it's the same dynamic. Only in this case, because China is so strict, it's much easier to get into China if you have those Chinese members representing China and Korea, because again, they're one group. You just have Chinese members there, and they can still make a profit because of that. Now, the question is, morally speaking, for Korea as a country, is that a good thing to allow your Chinese members to even represent China in that way? Because, again, if there's a political conflict, why would you want to even give China the benefit of the doubt? Who knows? So here's a Min Suga. "I would love to perform in China, but I am unable to in a K-pop group. There are a lot of different nationalities, and if there's a Chinese artist in the group, they can go perform there, but the rest of the group is not able to. Either way, I would love to perform there." So that's what he said. So however, with Chinese reopening in recent months, there is hope among K-pop outfits and their management firms for the potential partial or full lifting of the ban. In March this year, Chinese Ministry of Culture and Tourism announced that it would start accepting applications from foreign acts to visit and tour the country. Through it did not explicitly state whether South Korea acts would be welcomed again. I guess we'll see. Meanwhile, developments like the launch of a new music distribution deal between Tencent Music and HYBE, best known for managing K-pop groups like BTS and New Jeans, aim to make the music of their artists available to nearly 600 million monthly users of Chinese streaming music services, including QQ Music and Kugao. So yet, even if K-pop were to fully return to China, a pertinent question arises. Would Chinese consumers still be enthusiastic? I think so. Of course they would. It also depends on how long they're gone. If they're gone for a long time, if Korean members are gone for a long time, like say a decade or 15 years, then yeah, they'll probably be less enthusiastic if China completely cuts off anything Korean related in the Chinese internet, right? So it depends on that. It depends on how strict China is and how much they restrict information on the line. And when K-pop returns, if that happens, what they even know what K-pop is, the older generation from 15 years ago would, but the new generation coming up wouldn't. So that would be the main issue of that. So K-pop's a big question. Recent reports indicate an overall drop in Chinese consumption of South Korean products as perceptions of brand Korea have shifted. A survey conducted earlier this year by the Korea International Trade Association revealed that only 43.1% of the 1,000 Chinese nationals surveyed had purchased South Korean products within the past 5 years, compared to 78.7% in 2020. Younger Chinese consumers in particular exhibit less inclination to buy South Korean brands, citing the country's national image and their preference for products from other markets like Europe, the US, and Japan. So it's basically affecting all the national products, international products, because China has kind of cut off access to that. and see what can happen in just a few years. In just a few years, if China decides to cut off international trade when it comes to the music industry, just 3 to 4 years can change everything. You see the difference between 43.1% of now versus 78.7% from a few years ago, since 2020, during the pandemic and everything. So just imagine 10 to 15 years of that. Like I told you guys before, the next generation won't even know what K-pop is coming up. If you're born 15 years later, if you're born now and they say cut it off again or continue that, 15 years from now, other high schoolers, college students, whatever, they won't know what K-pop is if China is really good at cutting off anything associated to Korea, assuming how strict their internet access is, and what they're allowed to do. Can they use VPNs or not? Are VPNs allowed? Probably not. CC, so it could be any situation can lead to that if China decided to cut off access to international groups like South Korean K-pop, America, and Japan. So the status of Korean products in the Chinese consumer market has plummeted due to the sharp drop in exchanges between Korea and China over the past 3 years, stated a representative from the Korean International Trade Association in a Korean Herald report in March. Regional tensions and national rivalries also pose challenges for even the biggest K-pop outlets. In January this year, K-pop girl group New Jeans, which I did react to, guys, make sure you subscribe to see that, faced a controversy when it appeared in South Korea government-sponsored video performing the art of traditional paper making. Chinese citizens were outraged when the group spoke about South Korea's Hanjin, or traditional paper tradition, claiming that Korea were stating a claim over a Chinese invention. Paper is considered one of China's 4 great inventions. Listen, guys, that's China's. China can say whatever they want about paper. I feel like there are different forms of paper over the years. I could be wrong about that, but I do know Chinese did invent paper, silk, fireworks, things like that. And hey, listen, I will give China their props pre-Mao. All right, if that makes any sense. Chinese did what they did. Doesn't mean that Korea can't have their own style paper. Doesn't mean that Korea can't represent their own country of what their style of paper was. Because Korea and China were almost one country in a sense. They were just, I think at one point China ruled over Korea, and then they split up. I could be wrong, guys. Comment below, because I've watched some of those dramas, of historical dramas, and I kind of found out a lot about China versus Korea and how that dynamic worked. But that's a pretty big deal. Chinese citizens care about that kind of stuff. And I get it. I get why they would be offended based on historical context and accuracy. But hey, Korea has their own traditional paper too. So it's kind of like, yeah, Chinese people invented paper, but Korea has their own paper too. And it's just paper. So I don't know. China is a huge market for K-pop and Korean cultural products, but the THAAD controversy and consequent issues between the two countries have severely curtailed the growth of the sales in Chinese market, says Cedar Both Seiji, an assistant producer of Korean and East Asia Studies at Busan National University. Slow tickets. Earlier this year, China quickly launched its first K-pop series in years on the state-owned streaming platform Steamer Mango TV. Keyword state-owned. So that's a big deal. The release of the TV show Saemang Mimir of Color, starring renowned actress Lee Young-ae, was deemed a symbolic moment in China and South Korea's strengthening ties. So, however, some critics say, who are these critics? Some critics say even if South Korea content were to continue making a comeback, China now boasts a plethora of its own offerings with the arrival of Chinese K-pop idols such as Jackson Wang, formerly of GOT7, and Victoria's Song, a member of FX, who have notably moved their home base from South Korea to mainland China. Oh, so that's what happened to one of the FX members. And GOT7 too. I did see GOT7 in my last K-Con that I went to in LA. I'll be there this year, so make sure you come in August. If you guys are coming, feel free to meet me if you see me. I'll say hi. When this channel goes viral, right? So that's a pretty big deal. Yeah, so there, like I said, there were a lot of Chinese K-pop people in these groups, including Super Junior, I guess FX2 and GOT7. So if they're representing China now, that's a pretty big deal. But again, China has already had their own pop artists. We call it C-pop. So I'm not sure exactly why they would need K-pop. So why didn't they get rid of K-pop earlier? That's the question, right? Maybe K-pop just did it better than China. I'm not sure. We know Lisa from Blackpink, who's Thai, by the way, is Lisa from Blackpink. She does a show with China called something with you, something like that. I forgot what it's called. Dance with You or something with you. It's called Youth with You. Yes. And Lisa is one of the judges on that show. They love Lisa in China, even though she's Thai. All right, so I'm just saying, if she's still doing that show, guys, comment below. As Seiji in Busan National University academic points out, Chinese consumers have been encouraged to invest in local cultural content as numerous local groups, drama, and products has emerged. Since 2017, China has produced its own version and iterations of South Korea's shows, including Running Man, known as Keep Running in China, Copycats, I Am a Singer, and other reality TV shows. So they're basically copying Korea's models, so they won't need Korea, which is fine. Like, hey, it's their country; they can do whatever they want. But I don't think it helps China per se. I think it's just more of a pride thing, and just want to keep Korea out because of potential controversies, right? So on Chinese social media platform, Zhao Hangju used Sky stated, recent K-drama have been a bit boring. It's either about revenge or chasing serial killers. I started watching C-dramas instead. And this is coming from a Chinese person. I just don't believe them. But again, K-pop, so K-dramas have always been mostly the same. In fact, I would argue, based on my experience watching K-dramas, that they've actually improved because of the whole serial killer stories and or revenge stories. I think I know what they're talking about with the revenge stuff. I get that, but Japanese dramas have always had it. It's always been a thing. I think it just depends on like what genre you're watching. There's been a revenge dramas for years. I've seen them with male and female stars. Some don't end very well though. So if you're watching a revenge drama and you don't like it, watch something else. It's not that hard. And there's been many dramas like that for like 10, 15 years, I think. So I'm not sure exactly what this Chinese person is talking about. I've seen these dramas way before I was even watching K-dramas frequently, because I wasn't into them as much because of the whole, I wasn't much into the romantic dramas per se because I'm a guy, but I was way more into the revenge dramas because they were more interesting. And again, I think this is just a cope. I don't know, guys. You can comment below. But regarding the plot, regarding the plot, you can always tell the C dramas are made by Chinese people. Another user will commented, but watching K-drama feels like watching replicas on an assembly line. They're beautiful but lack soul. It's probably because, and I do agree with that sentiment, but America is suffering even worse when it comes to that, and I would still prefer to watch K-dramas or Japanese dramas. And I don't like remakes. I don't like remakes at all. If a K-drama is remade, which is more rare than I think the Japanese dramas right now, I don't like it. but I do think there has been a trend lately in America, and it seems like it kind of went a little bit to Korea and Japan in some ways, where it is like an assembly line where they would have a formula of how to write something and what gets views in terms of subjects. Some people would accuse Hollywood, for example, of using AI, which is why we have these writer strikes and even the Actors Guild strike in Hollywood. And they're not making good content because it's just like an assembly line, like you said. Writing, you kind of know it's coming. This is why I never watched K-drama in the past, because I think it wasn't as good as now. Personally, I think actually K-dramas have improved because I'm watching it now. So I know what the formula is, but I still think it's interesting enough to watch. And you can't rewrite plot summaries, right? Like, if it's a revenge drama, how do you make a revenge drama that's not like the other revenge dramas, right? Is it a slow burn? Is it a fast burn? Is it a continuous burn? So, and for the romance, that's been a thing forever, right? Stairway to Heaven, sad love story. Oh, well over 15 years ago. Winter Sonata, right? And for the historical dramas, Dae Jung-gun, all the way up. So what's the difference between now and 15 years ago? There's no difference, guys. The formula has been similar most of the time. I'm not sure what the complaint is now. How do you reinvent the real wheel? That's the real question, right? How do you reinvent the wheel? You can't. You have to do something new. But what is that new that the people would be interested in? So I don't disagree with him in that sense, but I don't think Chinese dramas are any different. I've seen some Chinese dramas and they seem all the same to me. So I think, again, to me personally, I think it's a cope. I don't see any reason why Chinese dramas don't lack the same soul. All right, so let's get over that. Overall, Chinese cultural content has caught up to the global standard. That's true. And the large media market in China supports an enormous diversity in exciting musical scenes, says Seiji, the academic. Chinese consumers are now aware of many local options, and Korean content no longer seems to offer something that is better than that one can find in China. Now, I would agree with that. The last Chinese drama I watched on Netflix was Rational. It was called Rational Life or something like that. I forgot what it was called, but it was a very beautiful actress, and the male star was really popular, and it was basically about the guy was trying to make it in the world, and he found he fell in love with his boss, and the boss fell for him eventually, and he was always saving her, which is it was definitely different than most Korean dramas, I would admit, because it was almost the opposite instance where the woman was richer than the young guy. So he was younger and had less money, but he was confident. He did everything he could to make it, and the female was impressed by him. And I think that's actually a good dynamic in a sense where compared to Korean dramas where you have the same formula when it comes to girl meets boss, and girl may not be interested in the boss, or she may. It depends on the drama, and the boss always falls really hard for the younger girl. But I think that plot line is more realistic when it comes to the sex dynamic, and the C drama is less realistic, but it's possible, which makes it more interesting for maybe a guy like me to watch. Kind of a little bit almost like an anime, really, in a sense, but not really. But in terms of the dynamic, right? You have a very beautiful, rich girl and the poor guy. Now, there's been some Korean dramas like that, like let's say Gloria, where they had really two co-stars, and the girl was poor, the guy was rich. But then you had the guy co-star who they know each other for a long time, but they're in the same area, the same house area. They always argue, and that poor guy meets a rich girl, and that dynamic was similar. Actually, I'll say it was a bigger difference in classes, and that drama was more of a class drama, so it was much easier to figure out, okay, this is definitely different than all the other dramas. I highly recommend this drama, guys. It's called Gloria. Has 50 episodes. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. But yeah, so that's that, guys. Things are changing in China when it comes to dramas. I actually do believe that China doesn't need K-drama, but I do think they still need K-pop. So I'll put that out there. I could be wrong. If you guys disagree with me, comment below. But I do think Chinese dramas will probably be more culturally relevant to China, and I really think they probably don't need that many K-dramas. But I do think every country needs their own variety, and if China steps it up, yeah, they won't need K-dramas. They only will need C-dramas. But when it comes to K-pop, it really just depends, right? And I do think China should give their own citizens an option whether or not to support their own artist or support K-pop on the side. I don't mind if it's 25%. I don't care. But the fact that what I don't like is the Chinese government controlling that part of China when it comes to the entertainment industry, because I don't think countries should be closed off like North Korea, for example, right? And China would be no different in that way. Completely keeping them unaware of what's going on in the rest of the world is not, to me, it's not healthy for a country, unless the outside countries are seeing a bad influence. And as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen anything from China that's that different from Korea. So when it comes to influence, I don't think that's helping. I think China doesn't need to push away K-pop or anything like that. But if they want to make their pop cleaner than K-pop, then I would understand that, and that would be up to, I guess, what music video versions they make for China, which is also a contradiction for a country to really bend the knee to China. So that's up to each individual production company, like Hives or JYP, YG, SM. It's up to them, really, how they want to treat China, and if they're willing to bow down to China and change their content for China for the money, just like US has been doing for years now, including the NBA. So that's, again, it's all about the money. The money talks, but is it worth it? Because again, K-pop is pretty big in the US too, but China has about 1.5 billion people. So again, different dynamic. I understand both sides of it. I just wish China had a bit better government. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Will K-pop survive in China? That's the real question. So like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and we will be back with more news like this about K-pop and what's going on with K-pop in China. Until next time, peace.